Well, hello. So today we're going to find the percent of a quantity. You're going to go to page 65 and 66 of your interactive notebook. You are going to put the note page with the topic on it on page 66. And on 65 we have our practice problem, which starts with 2 cousins sold 80 pizzas. So let's please start by putting in our essential question. Our EQ for these set of notes is, how do I set up a proportion to find the percent of a number? And so we're going to take some of the information that we've learned with proportions and how to relate to ratios to each other, and we're also going to take the information that we know on how to convert between percents, fractions, and decimals. We're going to combine that so that we can solve problems where we're trying to find like what percent is 16 of 328, or what is 28% of 622. So those type of problems. This stems from standard 6, ratio and proportion 3. And by the end of this lesson, you should be able to find the percent, of a quantity and find the whole given a part and a percent. And there's a formula. So whenever we get a problem like a number is what percent of another number, there's this formula, and in order to use this formula we have to know what some words represent. And so when we get this problem, and let's look at an example down here. We have 30 is what percent of 80, and these are the type of problems we're looking at. And you'll notice that there are some words here. We have is and we have of. Is, the number that comes before is representing a part of the whole amount, which is represented by the word of. So looking at this, you've got 30 is, so 30 is the part, 80 would be the whole. And to set up this proportion, we would relate it to a percentage. And we know that a percentage is just part of 100. So the percentage would be the part, and 100 is the whole. So we want to really make sure that we are looking at these two words as we set up our proportion. So let's go down to this problem, and let's just start setting it up. $30 is what percent of 80? So we have 30 and we have 80. Now remember, we're looking at an is over of equals a percent over 100. So with that in mind, let's look at the information we have. What comes before is? Well, it's 30. 30 is what percent of 80? Of 80 is 30. 30 is of 80. And we're going to make that into our proportion. So we don't know what percent. Whenever it gives you that what percent, that is where we're going to put in our variable because we don't know it. But we do know that the whole percentage would be 100. So now we have set up our proportion. So we're going to solve it. And we solve it by cross products. This times this. So 30 times 100, which we would have 3 times 1, which is 3, and 3 zeros. Okay. And then we're going to divide that number by what's left, and we would divide it by this 80. So 3,000 divided by 80. Well, 80 can't go into 30, but it can go into 300, and it can go into 300. So we wrote up our division problem here. We know that 80 can't go into 30, but it can go into 300, and we know that it can go in 4 times, because 8 times 4 is 24, so 80 times 4 would be 240. I said 4. I actually meant 3. Forgive me. 80 times 4 would be 32, or 320. We're looking at 140. And so we end up with 60. So I'm going to bring down my 0. And 80 into 600. If I just look at my 8 into 60, I know 8 times 7 is 56. And so it would be 5,600. And I'm going to get 40. And so I got to keep going. So I'm going to add my decimal, add a 0, and bring it down. 80 goes into 400. Well, 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 80 is 400. Subtract. So I know that this n equals 37.5. Or I know that 30 is 37.5% of 80. Okay, so now let's look at the next one. On the next one, we have 15 is 20% of what number? Okay, so using our formula, is over of equals percent over 100, I have an is, which is 15, but I don't have an of. It's of what number? So because I have a what number, I'm going to put in my variable, equals, but I have a percentage, 20 over my whole 100. So once again, what I got here, I found I have an is, 15 is, so I put my 15 in there. But I don't know what the of number is. It's a variable. It's unknown. So I put a variable in there. Equals 20% over 100. Okay, so now I'm going to do 15 times 100, which is 1,500. And I'm going to divide that by what's left over, which is this 20. So 1,500 divided by 20. 20 can't go into 15, but it can go into 150. 7 times, because 7 times 2 is 14. I'm adding my 0. And I end up with 10. I'm going to drop down my 0. And 20 goes into 100. 5 times 20 is 100. Subtract. So I know that my x equals 75. So I know that 15 is 20% of 75. Okay, so now that we know that formula, is over of equals percent over 100, we're going to keep using that formula. So let's go over to page 65. 2 cousins sold 80 pizzas. 25% of the pizzas were pepperoni. 30% were extra cheese. How many pizzas were pepperoni? It's one question. We'll put that as A. It's the first question. how many were extra cheese? And that's our second question, B. So we want to find out how many pizzas of the 25%, 25% it says out of the 80 were pepperoni, and it says 30% of the 80 were extra cheese. So we've got two problems to solve. I'm going to label our boxes A and B. Okay? And the first one is going to be pepperoni. And the second one is going to be extra cheese. Okay, so let's look at our problem here that we've got up above. We have, knowing we're going to use the is over of equals percent over 100, proportion. What is our is? Well, we don't know the how many is, but we do know the whole, the total. So we don't know what this is, but we do know that we have a total of 80 pizzas. And we know that it's going to be 25% over 100. So we do this times this, which we get 5 times 0 is 0, 40, 0, 2 times 8, 16. I end up with 2,000, sorry, squished it. And then 2,000 divided by what's left, we get divided by 100. 100 goes into 200, 2 times, which is 200, subtract. How many times does the 100 go into 0? 0 times. So we find that x equals 20, which means out of the 80 pizzas, 20 are pepperoni. So we write that down here. Out of the 80 pizzas total that we have, 20 of those pizzas represents 25%, so 20 pizzas are pepperoni. Okay, now let's solve the other side. Well, on this one, we can fill in, we have 100% total. Over here, we have 80 pizzas total. We're trying to find 30%, because 30%, it tells us up above in our question, 30% are cheese. But we don't know how many that represents out of the 80. Cross multiply, 80 times 30. 8 times 3 is 24. Add our 2 zeros. And then we divide that by what we have left over, which is our 100. 2400 divided by 100. 100 goes into 240 twice. Subtract. Drop down our 0. 100 goes into 400 4 times. Subtract, and we end up with 0. So we know that 24 equals x, which means out of the 80 pizzas that we have, 24 represents 30%, which is the extra cheese. So our second answer is 24 of our pizzas are extra cheese. So, tonight, as you are setting up your homework, remember, you're going to use the information you have using this formula. The is over of equals the percent over 100. Filling in whatever information you have and using the cross product to solve the proportion to find out what's missing. Thanks so much.